Yeah, I know. Big show, I know. I got to check one thing. And that's why you double check everything. All right, cool. Now we're ready.
That's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. Print that, tweet that.
And I hope they come in undefeated. That's what I told you before the game. Our team believes. Our team believes. They got heart. We got greatness in us. They say we can't do it. What they say now?
Down go the Champs. Auburn's 17-game win streak comes to an end.
We got greatness in us. So I told them you got greatness in you, but you got to make a decision to be great. They made a decision to be great today. And I couldn't think of a better place to end the streak. It's Death Valley, South Carolina, baby.
And now it's time for TigerNet Talk, presented by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty.
They got the coaches back.
Welcome back into another edition of TigerNet Talk. I'm your host, Lawton Swan, rolling along here with you for an hour of Clemson sports talk as we take a look at the new recruiting class and the players that have made this team that much better. When you look at the day, it was fantastic. We've got David Hood on the line with us. Stay with us here on the program. Later on, we're going to have Chansi Stuckey sitting down with us talking about his career at Clemson and where he is today and what he's been up to and some of the great moments that he had as a Tiger. But you know what? You can't have a guy like Chansi Stuckey on your team. You can't have a guy like C.J. Spiller on your team, Sammy Watkins, without recruiting. And David, as you were saying, the relief, it's finally over. The 2013 class is in the books.
It is, and that's kind of what Dabo said today. You know, he said that this puts the finishing touches on the 2012 season. We've, been through the regular season, through the bowl game. Now we've gone through the 2013 recruiting class. The coaches are going to take some time off and come back next week, hopefully a little bit more refreshed. That's when they're going to begin, in earnest, all of the all-in workouts. But, if you've got to end the football season, you might as well end it with a top 15 recruiting class and a bowl win in Atlanta.
No doubt about it. And you look at the big pickup here for the Clemson Tigers, Mackenzie Alexander, a guy that really, I think, early on in the process when Clemson may have been involved with some other notables like Kendall Fuller and others at that cornerback position, a kid who many people hoped maybe Clemson would land. Late in the process, it began to point a little bit towards Clemson. Talk about the number 4 rated overall prospect in the ESPN 150.
Yeah, to me, and this is just me, he was the one guy that I really wanted out of this class. And I know people wanted Carl Lawson, they wanted my training but me, just from a pure need standpoint, I thought adding him along with, J-Ron Curse, man, what a couple of just really studs to put back in that secondary. And then, for me, number 2, it was a defensive end guy. Maybe had Shaq Lawson coming in and all that. I think Clemson, looks pretty good at defensive tackle. Montrezl Adams would have been a nice pickup. He would have been great. There's no doubt about it. He's a talented player. But for me, I was looking at the secondary first and kind of a rush in second as being must-haves. And when you pick up the number 4 rated player in the country, a guy, Mackenzie Alexander, that, from everything that I hear, he works hard. He's going to outwork everybody. And he's the type of guy that, and just in my opinion, he can come in and have an impact like Travis Blank did last year. If he's going to start from day one, well, that might be a little bit too much to ask in January. He's really not going to be with the team until August, and August practice rolls around. But, could you see Clemson kind of, begin to phase him in and filter him in as the season goes along for more playing time? Absolutely. And, Clemson, when you look at Blanks, Curse, you look at some of the guys, who got a lot of playing time this year, once coming back, and you add a guy in like Alexander, all of a sudden you feel 1,000 times better about your secondary heading into 2013.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let's hear what Dabo Swinney had to say about Mackenzie Alexander.
Well, he's got excellent size and physicality, first of all. He's a 5'11" guy. He can fly. I mean, he's got the great speed. He's got great ball skills. He plays the ball very well, makes a lot of plays on the ball. He's a tackler. He is a physical presence when he steps on the field, and then he's got the instincts, the toughness. When you watch him play, you see a guy that's driven. And just has a competitiveness to him that is special. And you put those intangibles with the talent that he has, it makes him one of those rare guys. That has the combined skills plus the intangibles. But very smart. He's a guy that from day one has separated himself when you talk to him on the phone. As far as, hey, I'm not interested in anything else but being the best. And every time you call him, he's working out or just finished his workout. He's just very driven, very driven. A lot of that is how he's been raised, and he's a guy that wants to be great, not good, and he's willing to pay the price. But it just has great skills. I mean, he's again got the size. He's a developed kid for a senior in high school, and he's got the speed that you love to have at the corner position. He's one of those guys that can walk up and can play press man, and win a lot of battles.
And David, the other thing that I think is impressive about that is it reminds me of Sammy Watkins when you saw and heard Dabo Swinney when he first got on the field to say, hey, it was quick and easy for me to pick him out as one of the great ones, and you knew it was because of what he did throughout the year, coming out of high school, preparing for the collegiate level, and I think that's going to be key. Now, looking at this class, though, there were some other great names that ended up signing with the Clemson Tigers. One unknown, but many people projecting him towards Clemson. Tyrone Crowder, the offensive lineman, going to play the offensive guard position for Clemson, a thick kid. I got to tell you who he reminded me of, though, when he put on his hat. Are you a wrestling fan?
Oh, yeah.
Mark Henry. He looked a little like Mark Henry with his hat on.
I think he kind of does. I think you're right. I hadn't thought about that.
A little scary, nonetheless.
Well, Tyrone Crowder is a kid that, I was actually a bit shocked when I saw him at the Shrine Ball. I saw him at Dabo Swinney's camp last year, and he didn't work out then, but, he was there and he kind of had on one pants and a T-shirt. And, I got to eyeball him and see, exactly how he looked physically. And then I saw him at the Shrine Bowl, and it kind of jumped out at me. He put on, a pretty good bit of weight. And you never know, is it good weight, is it bad weight, or whatever. And, then he gets out there and starts working out, and you realize that weight affected him not at all. Just really fast, just footwork. He's still a little bit raw in some aspects, and he may, because of what Clemson's got going on the offensive line, redshirt this year. That wouldn't surprise me at all, but he's definitely a guy that, he can make an impact at some point.
Now, another kid who came on late for the Clemson Tigers, and I think earlier in the year when you were looking at Robert Kimdichie, you talk about a kid who people would have said would have just been a tag-along, but throughout the season, his senior year over there at Loganville, Georgia, at Grayson High School, he continued to improve. Ryan Carter, defensive back, I know he's not a big piece for this ball club, but I think it's ironic that when you look down the road, he doesn't end up going like Robert Kimdichie to Ole Miss. He made a name for himself, and I think Dabo Swinney did an excellent job during his press conference to point that out about this kid, that he made his way to where he is today, and I think that says something about the type player that the Clemson Tigers are looking for. Whether he's impactful down the road may not be the case for this team, but he's a guy who knows football, and right now for Clemson, a guy who has made his way there on his own accord.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, we went and watched Grayson High School play this year, and I went to some workouts. And every time I came away, I kept thinking, gee, Ryan Carter is better than David Kamara. Just, to me, he was. When you look at him, it seemed like he had better ball skills. He had better speed. And I thought, is he a guy that really could come in and, do I see him really contributing at defensive back right away? Maybe not, maybe in certain situations. But really is kind of a kick returner, punt returner, special teams guy. And then, I watched them play against Miami Central there. It might have been the second or the third week of the season. I went down there and watched them then. And I really was impressed with how well he played defensive back. Saw him once a couple of times. It's interesting that Dabo talks about comparing him to Adam Humphries, which Adam came out of high school and people said, well, Clemson did that to get Sharon Pete. And right now, there's no argument that Adam Humphries has had more of an impact than Sharon Peake. But watch Adam in high school and came away thinking this kid can play any position on the field, and he's just a true athlete, and he's going to be somebody that Clemson fans are going to be surprised by. And Ryan Carter's kind of like that. Is he going to have an impact with Adam? I think that's still a lot of that.
David, you're breaking up just a little bit, so I'm going to cut you off for a second there, talking about some of those impactful guys, and we'll just switch it up and move on for a minute. Scott Pagano, obviously big defensive tackle out of the state of Hawaii, the number one recruit out of that state, a kid who, when you look at him, already looks like he's got the body to play at the collegiate level. For Dabo Swinney and some of his coaching staff, there were long flights out to Hawaii, valuable time maybe from the mainland that they lost because of the 7-8 hour flights potentially to head out to Honolulu to bring this kid in. But is he a guy who you think that the Clemson Tigers can rely on this coming season? Physically, he looks like it, but is he a player that the Tigers will definitely use this coming year?
You know what? I don't think so. I think he redshirts, and I don't think that has really to do with Scott. I think it has more to do with the fact that he's got DJ Reader, Josh Watson, Deshaun Williams, Carlos Watkins, all those guys ahead of him in the rotation. And so it kind of comes down to using that Kevin Dodd who can switch up and go inside. So it just becomes, would it be worth it to waste a red shirt on him getting 6 or 7 snaps? And I don't know if Clemson will be wanting to do that with Josh Watson graduating this year. It might be good to come in and actually get some coaching, learn to play behind his pass, get some really good coaching, and watch for a year.
Now, Craig in the chat room wants to know, with all the ups and downs and drama we saw this year, do you think the NCAA rule changes will make things better or worse for college recruiting? I, for one, think it's going to make it a lot worse. I kind of agree with what Dabo Swinney has to say about the whole situation. However, the Postal Service, which apparently is not going to be delivering mail on Saturdays, may benefit. You may actually see those postal workers get their jobs back because of the increased amount of mail that these schools will be able to send.
You might, and I do agree. It's just going to get worse now that you've opened it up to where there's almost an unlimited contact period, and using the social media and things like that. People, I really thought this was, and I've written it a lot of times. This was the most drama-filled recruiting year I've ever seen, and I can just about guarantee you 2014 will be even worse.
And that's nothing fun to think about when you see how these players continue to build their personas for some degree. But there were a lot of Clemson fans out there that thought that maybe Clemson had missed on some players, and we know that it came down with a guy like Montravius Adams, perhaps with Clemson, but those that just can't put that to bed. Dabo Swinney, though, commented on it in his press conference. Let's hear what Dabo Swinney had to say about those people who focus on the players who didn't land at Clemson.
Well, he's got excellent size and physicality, first of all.
What is going on here on the program? I have no idea. That wasn't the clip we wanted. Coach Swinney, please tell me that you've got the clip we want right here.
Well, I guess according to you guys, people are not happy with the top 15 recruiting class. So I guess that's the biggest difference. Used to, if we could get the top 30, it was pretty good. So I guess now, we've raised the bar, but that's a good thing. And we're going to continue to do that and continue to recruit the best players. But listen, we're beyond the point where people are surprised if we sign a great player or a great class. Clemson is a special place. And if you just come take a look at it, you'll see for yourself. And I get that all the time, man. People will say, golly, there's just something different about this place. That's because there is something different about Clemson. And I encourage guys, go see other places, all that. I got all the confidence in the world in Clemson. And, so it's just been it's been quite a journey over the last 4 years in getting us where we want to be. But we're certainly at a point now where, we can recruit the best of the best. That Paul is on ESPN as much as anybody, and it's just going to continue. I know there's a lot of people that wish we'd go away, but we ain't going anywhere. We're just going to keep getting better and develop our guys into being the young men that we all want them to be, academically and athletically, and prepare them for life after Clemson. And that's the thing I'm most proud of. We're a top 10 football team, but we're top 10 academically. We're graduating our players 100% this year, and going to be 100% next year.
And I know Tiger fans are excited to hear Dabo Swinney say, hey, we're not going anywhere, and that's kind of the feeling that I have about this team. When you look at what Clemson did, they were able to fill the needs defensively, gaining 15 players. And I want to talk quickly. We had a question in the chat room. Bernard wants to know about the tight end position being a huge part of our offense. And the thing I was going to talk to you about, and he just happened to throw it up there right when I was asking you, is Jordan Leggett, tight end. He came into school early, 6'6", 235 pounds. I tell you what, as far as tight ends goes, I think this kid's got a lot of potential. I think he's going to have to put on a little bit of weight, but I think he can be a kid who is very impactful for this Clemson offense the way Chad Morris has been able to utilize the tight ends over the past few seasons. It may not be immediate, but I think down the road, this kid has the potential to be one of the best tight ends Clemson's had.
Yeah, I really like, after watching him out of Dabo's camp, I really love his ball skills. I like the way that he goes out. I like the way he uses his hands to catch passes. I like the way he runs routes. He's got quick feet. And you're right, he's probably going to have to put on some weight. And, a big part of Chad Morris's offense with the tight end is learning how to block. And, we just don't know if he's done a whole lot of that. But, as far as just being able to go out and catch passes and use that speed and use that big frame of this, yeah, he's an exciting one. Along with, a kid that got last year, J.J. McCall, I think Clemson's in great shape at tight end.
Finally, David, before we get you out here, I wanted to ask you real quick, who's that sleeper pick? Who's the guy maybe that Clemson picked up that most people out there maybe aren't, exactly clapping their hands about and jumping up for joy? Who's the guy in this recruiting class of 23 that stands out for you?
I mean, obviously, there's the stalwarts. There's, Alexander and there's Kirsch. And those guys are great. And it's a guy that's really picked up a lot of steam lately, but Ben Boulware. I just love Ben Boulware. And, I think he's going to be one of these guys that's a leader in the locker room and a leader out on the field. And, at the end of his 4 years, Clemson fans are going to realize, wow, he was a good one.
David Hood, as always, man, fantastic to have you on. Appreciate the coverage today of National Signing Day. Great job by the guys at TigerNet. I really enjoyed it. And absolutely, I know you deserve a few days off, but that 2014 class is right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, there's no day off anymore.
I heard that. All right, David, we'll talk with you real soon.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. David Hood, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic job. If I had to tell you who I think my sleeper pick is, somebody who maybe most people don't feel like, or maybe most people don't know about, I like a kid like Dane Rogers. I think he's got the physical nature about him. He's got the look of your prototypical defensive end. I think he's a kid who can play with speed. He's got a ton of strength. He's explosive. I think he's a little bit underrated coming out of Shelby, North Carolina. I look for him to be a guy down the road, maybe not obviously his freshman year, but maybe 2-3 seasons when he gets on the field and you see his body, you say to people, hey, where'd this guy come from? So if I had to pick one right now, I'd say it's Dane Rogers. And plus, I like the fact, like Dabo Swinney said, that young man was committed to what we were doing the entire time. And for me, that's a big issue when you look at the players. We talked about the Twitter and we talked about the internet and how that's affected these players, the social media. There are some guys out there who are truly committed. And whether you don't like what Carl Lawson did by going to Auburn because he didn't end up landing with Clemson, and we actually thought for a minute he might be headed this way, and then it kind of looked more and more like Tennessee, and I said, you know what, if he goes to Tennessee, Montravius Adams is definitely coming to Clemson. When Lawson re-upped and said, no, I'm all in, I'm going to go to Auburn, I kind of felt a little bit, I backed off a little bit on Montravius. Montravius ends up over there as well, which is a bit of a disappointment. The SEC West really racked up, but give Carl Lawson credit. He said he wanted to go to Auburn. He stood by his word. And for crying out loud, as a Clemson fan, that's really all I can ask of these guys at this point because there is such an open battlefield, if you will, on these recruits. The minute you sign somebody, problems can find their way to arise. And for Clemson Tiger fans with the Robert Kimdichie situation, Dabo Swinney had a very funny comment. We're going to play that for you later in the program. But stick around. Clemson got a little bit deeper with this class, addressing some needs on the defensive side of the ball. But we're going to talk with an offensive legend at Clemson, Chansi Stuckey, Hands of Gold. I don't know if he had a nickname when he was playing for Clemson. I don't remember one, but that's what I would have called him. the kid catched everything, or caught, I should say, everything that came his way. Stay with us. More TigerNet Talk right after this.
We're on the quest for the best, and we can't let anything hold us back.
These boys can't hold us back. These boys can't hold us back.
Missed that old familiar ping of college baseball? Well, guess what? You don't have to miss a single game of Clemson Tiger baseball, as you can stay at the closest hotel to Doug Kingsmore Stadium, the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. Rooms are available for baseball season with lakeside accommodations, complimentary continental breakfast, bar, Seasons Restaurant by the Lake, Joe's Place Bar, and the Walker Golf Course. All are waiting for you right around the corner from the stadium. For reservations, contact General Manager Sharon Franks at sharonf@clemson.edu or call toll-free 1-888-654-9020 and ask to speak to Sharon. It's the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. Go to www.clemsonuniversityn.com. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. A winning team requires having great team members. If you're a landowner interested in selling timber or are considering buying or selling land, call the winning team of Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC today. Put the knowledge and skills of professional licensed foresters and realtors to work for your team. To learn more about services offered by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC, visit www.crosscreektimber.com and easily follow the link to real estate or reach them by phone 864-517-3620 or 864-517-3621. Clemson Sports Talk fans, let us help you. With rates starting as low as $100 a month, you can advertise with us through July 2013. We are currently seeking additional advertisers and would love to help you spread the word about your business. Email us clemson81@gmail.com for additional information. Sponsors will receive an ad during the show and a link and logo in the weekly show notes on TigerNet and on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Take your business to the Clemson fans around the world with us, ClemsonSportsTalk.com.
I thought I'd grow up and I'd settle down. There was 10,000 girls up in Tiger Town, and it was heaven to me.
Welcome back in to TigerNet Talk. I'm your host, Lawton Swan. Glad to be here with you once again. And we're joined by former Clemson wide receiver Chansi Stuckey. Led the team in receptions in 2005 and 2006, and really a go-to guy for the Clemson Tigers in that offense back in those days. And Chansi, I know you're not an old guy yet. You're much younger than me, but it's something when you have to, you kind of get addressed as a legend at Clemson University, but you were a guy that the Tigers could count on in the clutch in an offense that maybe didn't throw the ball as much as the wide receivers would have liked, but when you had your opportunities, you made the most of it.
Yeah, it was a little different offense back then. We had a lot of different players. We were more so defense, but, me and some of the guys now kind of, look at what Chad Morris and the guys are doing now. We were like, what if, what if we had, James and CJ and Proctor and all those guys and that type of offense, what we could have did. But, it was fun.
Yeah, and you got right into exactly where I was headed with you when I think about all the talent that you had on those ball clubs and just this offense, the way things have developed under Chad Morris, really that hurry-up offense. How do you think a guy like yourself would have played in this system?
Well, I think it would have been great, because we put a lot of onus on the receivers, a lot of guys go in motion and doing different things, a lot of hurry-up, so it puts a lot of onus on the receiver to know the offense, be in shape and things like that. And that's what we really, wanted to do was be fast-paced and, go at the line. And, it would just been really, really great if we could have, if Chad had came along just a little earlier.
Now, you obviously went through the recruiting process, a quarterback out of high school, a four-star guy, so you've been through the grind of what these players go through. Maybe it's changed a little bit with social media, but talk a little bit for Clemson Tiger fans who maybe have never been courted by multiple programs, and many of the programs right here in the South were all over you, the Georgia Techs of the world, Florida State. Everybody was looking at Chansi Stuckey coming out of high school. What's it like to be one of the more sought-after recruits?
I mean, it's very humbling. At the same time, it's incredible because you have all the major college programs that, you kind of look up to, and they're knocking down your door. They're sitting in your living room having dinner with your parents and, talking to your family members, and you're going to visit those schools. I mean, it's incredible. You go to the Tennessees and the Alabamas and the Florida States, Georgia Techs, the Clemsons, and, just amazed at how huge, the recruiting is and how blessed you are to have the opportunity to visit those 5 places.
Now, some of these guys come in, not too often, but every once in a while kind of labeled as an athlete. And you came in your first year, obviously the red shirt, and then in 2003 the backup quarterback to Charlie Whitehurst. But you made that transition the next season to wide receiver. What was that like for you, kind of knowing that you had been courted as this quarterback, but then you kind of had to switch up to really get on the field? I know that speaks to, I think, your willingness to contribute to the team, but how much of a transition was that for you as a young man?
It was tough at first. I was all on board with, it was actually Dabo's idea. And I was on board. Derek Hamilton had just left early for the NFL, and there was a big void there to play in the slot. And I saw how they used Derek, and, I was excited, and, I want the ball in my hands. And the big difference was, instead of, being behind everything, looking forward with the ball at quarterback, is now that you're running away from the quarterback and your back is to where the ball is a lot of the time. So it was definitely that adjustment of catching the ball, turning, recognizing where defenders were, and, the adequacies of running the routes and things like that, and how precise everything had to be. It was definitely a huge learning curve for me.
Now, that's the voice of Chansi Stuckey, the first 2-time All-ACC receiver at Clemson since Perry Tuttle. We actually had Perry Tuttle on the show not that long ago. Fantastic guy. Do you wide receivers, do you feel a little bit of a camaraderie, maybe a fraternity amongst these wide receivers at Clemson University?
Yeah, definitely so. You speaking of that, just me and Kevin Youngblood are still really, really good friends. He's about an hour away from me, so I go down and hang with his family and his kids and things like that, and we just talk about the old days, about, when I played quarterback and I threw him some passes, and, how it was, if he was better, if I was better at receiver, just different things like that. But it's definitely, you hit it right on the nose, it's definitely a camaraderie, around the Clemson receivers and the legacy that we have.
Well, Chancey, the more I think about you as a quarterback at Clemson, maybe, when I kind of asked you the question about playing in Chad Morris's system, I was thinking of you as a wide receiver. But I'll tell you what, I think if Chad Morris had his choice to run his system with you or Charlie Whitehurst, you'd have been under center.
Yeah, that probably would have ended up that way. I had to put on a little more weight, but I think Charlie could have did. Charlie was a little more athletic than a lot of people thought. He just didn't have to run much because he had all those great wideouts. But I think he could have did a little pistol and got 5 or 6 yards here and there.
Well, the one time we really saw Charlie Whitehurst run was in that ball game against Florida State back when they were ranked number 3, coming off of just really a terrible loss at Wake Forest. I know you remember it. It had to be a painful loss for the ball club, but you go out, you win 4 straight games, you beat South Carolina like a drum, 63-17, and you end the season beating Tennessee in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. What was that streak like? What was it like to be involved in that stretch of games coming off of what many would have considered the low of the low?
I think that was kind of the point in Clemson's, history that it kind of turned back for the better. It took a while to get, where we are right now, but I think that was kind of the beginning of, Clemson can make a little noise. We beat a couple really good teams, and then, we kind of fired here and there the next couple of years, beating some good teams and then losing to some lesser teams. But I think that streak there kind of really put the nail in the coffin that we can really play with, anybody in America, in the country.
Well, the 2004 season obviously didn't go the way many people had hoped. You came out, you got 1 win to start the year and then lose 4 straight. But that 2005 team, maybe when you look at them, you guys may have been one of the most underrated Clemson teams ever. 4 losses that year, by a combined total of 14 points, and 2 of those were in overtime to Miami and Boston College. How close was that team? You finished the season 8-4 with a win over Colorado in a bowl. How close was that team to being what many people may have called one of the best in Clemson history?
Very, very close, man. I just think the difference then was that we didn't know how to close out games. We would play great for 4.5 quarters, but those last little times we just never could finish. You know, whether one thing go this way, a penalty here, a drop pass there, errant pass here. I mean, just we didn't know how to finish both offensively and defensively, and I think that's the difference in a 10, 11 win season and an 8-win season.
That's the voice of former Clemson wide receiver Chansi Stuckey. We've got some questions for you here in the chat room. Tommy wants to know what your occupation is now. I know the last I saw you were playing up, I believe, in the Canadian Football League. But what's your occupation now? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, are you the fastest at what you're doing?
Yeah, I can definitely say I'm the fastest at what I'm doing now. I am currently in TV now. I'm transitioning into TV and doing some sports shows and getting my own show and things like that. And on the side, I'm starting a health food business that I'm kind of getting into now. So just kind of TV is kind of the biggest thing that I'm transitioning to right now.
Swan and Stuckey has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
It does. It does.
Let's see. We've got another question here for you. It comes to us from Matthew. He wants to know, what was it like putting that final touchdown in the end zone against South Carolina in that 63-17, as he calls it, beautiful beatdown?
It was great, man. That was one of the high points of my career. You're really excited. You're young, and you finally get into the game, and it was amazing. I got to throw a couple passes, a touchdown to Derek Hamilton, some passes to Kevin Youngblood, and to have one of the most memorable runs of my career there, and it was amazing, man. Just thinking back, that's really a special night for us.
Talk a little bit with Clemson Tiger fans about your NFL career. Obviously, many people followed you early on when you were with the Jets and then transitioning to the Cleveland Browns and ultimately ending up with the Arizona Cardinals. What was that like for you? I think one question I always have for Clemson Tiger players who go to the NFL is, do you ever lose what you loved about the game when you were a young man playing it for fun when it finally becomes a job and it's about having a roster spot and making money and putting food on the table?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. As soon as you leave college, I didn't recognize this until probably my third year that that love, that passion for the game is just different. You know what I mean? It's more of a job. I mean, you have great camaraderie, all the same things in the locker room, the camaraderie, the hanging out with families and the traveling and stuff, and all that is great. But it's just a different game. Week in and week out. You got to perform, and it's a lot of pressure. And when you don't perform, and then the coaches, they have to perform too. So it's a dog-eat-dog system, but it's a way of life, and it's just like anything else that you go into, you have to perform, or the next guy coming out of school is going to take your spot.
That is Chansi Stuckey. Chansi, if you can stay with us through the commercial break, we're going to keep you on. If you have questions for him, tweet to us, #TNTalk. If you're live with us here in the chat room, please send your messages, and we will get them to him. What you would like to say to Chansi Stuckey, he's going to stick around and stay with us. We'll be back. We're going to head out to a short break here on TigerNet Talk, and when we come back, Chansi goes through the grind, the Clemson 10. We put some of the greatest in Clemson's history through it. Chansi will go through it with us. 10 questions, short answers, and his feelings about being a Clemson Tiger. Stay with us, Clemson fans.
I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981.
Do you suffer from a chronic case of the woohoo during football games? Do your Saturdays sound something a bit like this? Well, TigerNet Talk is out to fix that. If we can band together, we can change this reoccurring issue with a simple Go Tigers, Go Tigers Go. You can make a difference. Ban the woohoo. Do yourself a favor. And as always, Go Tigers. your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services through football season. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove.
There's something about looking and feeling classy that everyone enjoys. Check out Edisto Outdoors, an apparel brand inspired by our southern animals and environment. These shirts feature soft-touch prints that will keep you looking your best in all types of weather. Look for Edisto Outdoors, coming soon to many fine retailers across the state, or visit www.edistooutdoors.com. Technical, comfortable, livable.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that.
Coach Ford, I wrote this song for you. I'm singing from my heart. There's something special in your style. I've known it from the start. Oh, listen up, we won't give up. We'll soon be number one. We'll be grinning.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what happened there to the video. If you're watching the show on Spreecast, we're also on ClemsonSportsTalk.com and on the front page of TigerNet.com. Not sure. I vanished for a minute. I think I'm with you. I may not be. But I don't see anybody in the chat room complaining that they can't hear me. So I'm assuming that I am still available. For those of you listening to the podcast edition of the show, thank you for being here with us. We certainly appreciate you downloading the program and checking us out. As always, tweet to us throughout the week, #TNTalk. You can email us anytime, clemson81@gmail.com. And if you go to our website, over on the right-hand side of ClemsonSportsTalk.com, leave a voicemail on the phone lines are always open, 803-450-0086. And Chansi Stuckey is still with us here. And Chansi, David in the chat room wants to know, do you help with recruiting for Clemson like other ex-football players?
Yeah, when I have a guy that is in my area, and, I talk to Dabo all the time and, let him know that there's a guy in my area that, I need to speak with, or I need to, talk Clemson up to him. I'll do that. But most of the time, the coaches do such a great job of, getting the guys they want. Our stuff as players is just, is just a little extra, on top. But, they do such a great job of recruiting, sometimes it's not needed.
No doubt about it. Now, another question comes to you. Are you done playing ball? Let's see. Do you still get calls for invited to camps for the NFL?
Oh, no. If I got some invites, I'll still be playing. But, no, other than that, unless, someone calls here in the next, month or two, I'll probably be done and, sending my papers and go ahead and retire.
Oh, wow. So retirement's going to be the choice, eh? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here, Chansi. We're still having some problems with the video. I can't exactly figure out what's going on. Some people are saying they're seeing a blank screen, so I'm trying to troubleshoot that while we go through the Clemson 10 here, and hopefully for everybody, we'll be back with them momentarily. But with the Clemson 10, it starts off very simply. What does Clemson mean to Chansi Stuckey?
Clemson to me is my home away from home. I I tell my daughter and my wife about Clemson, and they can't wait to come. But when someone says Clemson to me, I just get a homey feeling, and just like that one place you can always go back to.
Describe the first time you ran down the hill on game day.
I mean, I still remember the day. It was me and Will Proctor. We were running down at the same time, and I didn't realize how steep it was, and then it plateaus off and then goes down again. And I can just remember being all smiles, just running down the hill with a feeling, exhilarating feeling that nothing else can match.
Describe who had the biggest influence. I should say, who's had the biggest influence on your life?
Probably. You mean in football with Clemson, or just period?
At football, I guess period.
Okay, period. I've had so many people. Like I had a high school coach that really kept me humble, and Conrad Nix, and a running backs coach at that time, and Ron Wilson, that did such a great job of keeping me humble. And obviously at Clemson, Dabo was very instrumental in helping me progress as a person and as a player. And I would think those three coaches are probably the biggest influence of guys on my life.
What's your favorite spot on campus? If you could go back right now, snap your fingers, and end up in Clemson on campus, where would you be?
The horseshoe, no question. I'll be in the horseshoe, hanging out on the bench up under the tree in front of Shaletta. That's where all the guys met, who getting out of class, going to eat. So I think I would definitely be in the horseshoe. All
right, let's see. Your greatest moment during your time at Clemson University?
My greatest moment, it would probably have to be an entire game. When we played Florida State at home, I had 11 catch, 156-yard performance that day. So that was probably an entire game there was probably my most memorable moment.
And the thing about that was I was actually looking through some of the statistics today about that. One of the, 11 receptions is a ton in Clemson history was a ton, I should say, before these young guys have really taken over.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins. I think the only other person that had done it up until that point may have been Rod Gardner, and I think maybe Aries Curry had 12.
Yeah, I think it was Curry. Yeah, Aries, yeah.
So, it's not something that people saw all the time. How about
a whole lot back there? It's funny how we look back to when I was 10. It just seems so primitive, huh?
I mean, it's almost before the forward pass was invented.
Yeah, exactly. It's horrible. That's so bad. I feel old now.
Yeah. How about your toughest moment during your times at Clemson?
Toughest moment was when I broke my foot my senior year. I had a great junior season, and I contemplated leaving early for the NFL then, and I came back. I wanted to finish with my guys, and then halfway through the season, I broke my left foot, and that was probably the most down moment at Clemson there.
What about classes? What's your most difficult class you had to take?
Shoot, by far, economics class that I had to take, it was super, super tough. I had it with a couple other guys, too, so they were doing a lot of distractions. But I think the economics class was probably the toughest class I ever had to take at Clemson.
Yeah, it was accounting for me, to be honest with you. Accounting, that was I had a feeling it was going to be something you took in Serene Hall. That always seems to be.
Yeah, no question, no question.
I don't know why that is. All right, you traveled around. You played in a bunch of stadiums on the road during your college career. What was the best stadium to play on the road?
The best place to play on the road was probably Virginia Tech, without a doubt. That's probably the toughest and funnest place to play at the same time, because the one time we went there, it was on a Thursday night, and it was just incredible. The fans are right on top of you, and that stadium, it's not very big, but the way it's designed is really good, and that's probably the greatest place to play on the road was probably Virginia Tech.
I think you pretty much, outside of some of the guys that never played in Tallahassee, may be the first person that's come on and said somewhere other than Doak Campbell Stadium, to be honest.
Yeah, Doak is great, but Doak speaks for itself. You know what I mean? Like, I like the small places that are just crazy. It was easy to play at Doak for me, but Virginia Tech was probably the toughest.
How about one thing that most people don't know about Chansi Stuckey?
About me is that a cool thing. Okay, I proposed to my wife 2 years ago in Florence, Italy. That's probably what people don't know about me. A lot of people don't know where I proposed to my wife at.
All right. Well, I'm sure that was a nice little trip for her. I know my wife's always bugging me to go someplace nice like that. Now my wife's listening to the show. I'm in trouble. Now I'm going to have to take her to Florence, Italy. Thank you. I can take her to Florence, South Carolina.
My bad.
No, that's all right, man. And finally, Chancey, every time we have former Clemson players on, they're just fantastic guys. But in your mind, where do you hope that in 10 years Clemson fans will see you, and what will they remember most about Chansi Stuckey?
Just being an all around guy, somebody that made a difference at Clemson. Like you said, the first 2-time All ACC guy in a long time, and with all the way the rate's going now, with all the receivers Clemson getting, I just hope to be remembered.
Yeah. I heard that. Hey, well, you know what? Maybe one day you'll have a son playing. How about that? Put the number 2 back out there on the field.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Chancey, man, I really do appreciate you being here with us. We finally got the show back up, so I got one more question for you. I'm not sure what happened. The show cut off on the live feed, but Bernard wants to know who was the fastest player on that team back in 2005.
2005? Was Jacoby on that team?
I want to.
It had to be Jacoby. I think Jacoby was on the team then. Yeah, it was by far Jacoby. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. And anytime you want to come on and talk about the Clemson Tigers, we would be more than willing to sit down with you. And, with that career you're trying to build, I'd love to have you on. And best of luck to you. And certainly with everything that you do. And I know Clemson Tiger fans are grateful for you spending some time with us.
All right. Appreciate it. I love the fans. I love you guys. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Chansi Stuckey, ladies and gentlemen, former Clemson Tiger, wide receiver. And I tell you what, he was a 2-time All-ACC wide receiver, as I mentioned. But he's much more than that, as you could tell. And somebody commented on that, just the quality of the players that we have returning here on the program. All-American, in my mind, Chansi Stuckey. We'll be right back here on TigerNet Talk.
It was gone the day she moved out. In my head, if I pointed it just...
We scoop the boot, dutycalls.com. When nobody else will do it, dutycalls.com. To make that dog poop go away, call or click for a free quote today.
When nature calls, we answer. To get a free quote for dog poop removal, go to dutycalls.com now.
DOODYCALLS. dutycalls.com.
In the Midlands area, dial 1-800-DUTY-CALLS. They're number 1 and number 2. Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Hey there, Tiger fans. When you take yourself out to the ball game, make sure that you're staying at the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. That's right, it's the closest hotel to Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Lakeside accommodations, complimentary continental breakfast bar with waffles, the Seasons by the Lake restaurant, Joe's Place Bar, and the Walker Golf Course are all waiting for you right around the corner from Doug Kingsmore Stadium. For reservations, contact General Manager Sharon Franks at sharonf@clemson.edu or call 1-888-654-9020 and ask to speak to Sharon. Buy yourself some peanuts and Cracker Jacks, but make sure that you stay at the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. Take your business to the next level with innovative website design from Foodog Media. Foodog can handle all your web, graphic, and social media needs. Call them today, 843-864-9268. That's 843-864-9268. Mention this ad and receive 10% off of your website. Foodog is a Clemson-owned business. See their portfolio at www.foodogmedia.net. May the food be with you. A winning team requires having great team members. If you're a landowner interested in selling timber or are considering buying or selling land, call the winning team of Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC today. Put the knowledge and skills of professional licensed foresters and realtors to work for your team. To learn more about services offered by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC, visit www.crosscreektimber.com and easily follow the link to real estate or reach them by phone 864-517-3620 or 864-517-3621.
This is Clemson Tom, and you're listening to Clemson Sports Talk. So sit down and have you a cold one and listen to a true American.
Our good buddy, friend of the program, Clemson Tom, who, of course, was in studio with us, the invasion, if you will, Clemson Tom. And you know what? I've gotten a lot of comments about that. The first of which, when it first came out that Clemson Tom was going to be on the show, some people were like, they didn't want to tune in and listen. But then people that listened said, hey, you know what? Clemson Tom was really good in studio. And you know what? When I listened back to it, I thought he did a fantastic job. Ray says, when's the last time that I can remember Clemson signing the number one player in New York and Hawaii in the same class? Never. Go Tigers. There you go, Ray. Thank you for emailing the show, clemson81@gmail.com. Look, everybody's coming back in. The chat room's slowly filling back up. I got in touch with the guys over at TigerNet, and they're trying to get things set up. I'm not sure what happened with the Spreecast feed, so I had to create a new Spreecast. That's the first time ever that we've had an issue with Spreecast at all. Bernard said he is investigating to see if it's chickens who pulled the plug on us. And the irony of it, as I put in the chat room, was it was right after, I believe it was Tommy Chastain had said that, man, Spreecast, isn't it great? And then everything just fell apart. Bernard yells, Gamecock sabotage. But you folks are back with us. We lost some people, but the good news is if you follow the program, you know there's a podcast edition available that will come out typically a day, maybe 2 days after the program. And then, as always, we'll take Chansi Stuckey's interview there with us. We'll archive it on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. So if you say, you know what, you need to hear this interview with Chansi Stuckey, you can send them right there. And if they want to skip out on the first and last segment, which may be the best, you got to book in your show, they can still do that. Anyway, Tommy wants to know, he says, I don't know if he says, are there any shortcomings by position in our recruiting this year? Any concerns? I'm going to say this about recruiting, Tommy, and I think this is a fair statement. I think Dabo Swinney would say the same. As proud as he is of this class, we can look at these ratings and you can look at these players and say, okay, they're a top 15 class. They've got a lot of potential. But ultimately, you'll see how they pan out over the next few seasons. If there are any places where maybe I have a little bit of concern, okay, it could be if a guy like Tyshawn Dye or a guy like Wayne Gallman don't pan out at the running back position. Now, that's you can't predict the future. Obviously, the running back position is a position of a bit of need there for Clemson because of the number of injuries. When you look at, and I'm not saying that guys are injured for Clemson, I'm saying when you look at positions on the field where you have to have substantial backups, guys who can play, it's that running back position. The NFL, the life of a running back is in the NFL, it's about 3 years. So you've always got to be really loaded up, and you have to have guys behind guys who can get the job done. And it's not to say that Dye and Gallman can't do it, but when I look at this class, that's a spot where I say, can they fill that need? But Tyshawn Dye's a big kid. I think as he develops, maybe puts on a little bit more weight, he'll be somebody that a lot of people will be surprised about. But for me, that's kind of a spot where I wouldn't say I'm overly concerned, but when I saw some other players in some of these Under Armour All-American games, Alvin Kamara just looked amazing. And he's a guy who early on in the process, if you follow the show, I said, hey, there's somebody you need to look at. And it's hard to judge, but when you see him going up against other great players who are going to college, whew, talk about somebody. Dabo said, don't worry about the guys that we missed out on. That's true. But if there was a guy out there who I would have liked to pick up, it's definitely Kamara. He just had all the tools, I think, that you would want out of a running back. But we've got a couple more quotes from Dabo Swinney. We're also going to hear from Jeff Scott here on the program, and it's looking like we're going to go a little bit over the 1 hour time frame. Matthew makes a great point. Mike Bellamy, missing out on Lane and really cutting ties with him, Marlon Lane, that really, set Clemson back a little bit at the running back position, especially when you consider what Bellamy showed at times. What Bellamy showed you at times, I know immaturity off the field, maybe some immaturity in picking up some of the blocking schemes and packages, but you could see a bright future for that young man, I think, had he been able to keep it together in between his ears. And since he had some issues off the field, in the classroom, we all know that things didn't work out, and that's left Clemson a little bit behind the eight ball. But my point, again, is not to say that Dye and Gallman can't be great players, because I think they obviously can. Four-star guys, you're never going to poo-poo that. You're never going to shoot that fact down. Oh, these are four-star guys. I think Dabo made a great point. We used to be so excited when we got some four-star guys, and we should be. These guys have a ton of potential. But you're basing it off of, like when we had Luganbill on the other day, Tom Luganbill, ESPN's director of recruiting, had him on the Clemson Hotline Sunday, and we kind of got into some of that about the development of the players as they get to college. And Luganbill says, we look at all these assets that they bring to the table, all the things that you can quantify and really judge by what they do on the field. But ultimately it comes down to, how do they accept the challenge of going up against guys who have equal talent? How do they accept the challenge of not being the fastest or the strongest player on the field anymore? And sometimes for some guys, it gets in their head and they can never get past it. It's the same thing that I think you look at with injuries for players. How many times have you seen a great player go down, blow out a knee, and not be able to recover, not be able to bounce back from that knee injury, because it's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. It's a mental hurdle that they have to get past. And ultimately that comes down sometimes to what becomes the issue for a lot of guys. Now, as I mentioned just moments ago, we're going to send it back out to Coach Dabo Swinney. He's talking a little bit about Clemson's recruiting and where we are today. I think we've got everything fired up now, and we're going to hear from Coach Dabo Swinney right here, his press conference after National Signing Day just a little bit earlier this afternoon.
We just want great players. The SEC would like to make you think that, but that they invented football and that you can't be successful unless you play in that league. But we certainly don't subscribe to that, and thankfully for 3 years in a row, the recruits that we've been bringing in here, they don't buy that lie either. They're more focused on bringing in the championship back to Clemson. And that's really all we focus on, is just trying to get the best players. It don't matter who's recruiting them or who's not recruiting them. We have a criteria that we like at each position. We have an evaluation process that we go through thoroughly. Sometimes guys we really like, a lot of people like. Sometimes guys we really like, there's not many people that like, for whatever reason. I don't know why. It's just like the TJ Green kid this year. We didn't find him until late. We never even saw tape on the guy. And he was as good a looking a prospect as we saw. Couldn't believe it. And I knew exactly what would happen. And we tried to, it's hard to keep anything quiet with all you guys around here, but we tried to keep it quiet because I knew what was going to happen. And as soon as people found out he was coming up here, he was going to, one of those in-state schools would offer him, and they did. So we were fortunate to be able to hang on to him. But it's just a process that you go through, and again, we have a criteria we believe in, and if they fit that, then we go full speed.
And Dabo Swinney obviously won with a quick wit and making this comment about the recruitment of Ebenezer Okendeko out of New York City.
Well, whenever I was growing up, I always liked going fishing.
What in the world is going on? I don't know why that's not in there. That was supposed to be his comment. I don't know if you heard it or not. Dabo Swinney talking about going 500 on Nigerian mamas during this season. That was, of course, the voice of Jeff Scott. And Jeff Scott was talking about back in the days, he was asked a question, is there anyone that he was unable to convince to come to Clemson that he would have liked to have been able to come, and his feelings and thoughts on that? We'll hear from recruiting coordinator Jeff Scott right here.
Well, whenever I was growing up, I always liked going fishing. And I can remember I had choices. You can go fish in this pond and catch a bunch of small fish, or you can go over to this pond. You might not catch as many, but the ones you catch are going to be really big. And I was always the guy that liked to go to that pond and have a chance to catch those big ones, knowing that you're going to get some big ones on the hook and maybe lose them. but maybe having the opportunity to catch some big ones. So, I think Coach Sweeney and the staff here have done a great job, administration, of giving us an opportunity where we truly can compete and recruit for the top players in the country. And whenever you get in that realm, you're going to miss. You're not going to get them all. There's some other very strong programs, and I know myself, being involved with the university as a player back in 1999 and just over the last 14 years, that's one change that I've seen is Clemson now has an opportunity and has shown to be successful going toe-to-toe with some of the top programs in the country from a recruiting perspective. And when you do that, you're going to get your share, but you're also going to lose some. So obviously, every year there's some guys that you want. But like Coach Sweeney said, we're awfully excited about the guys that choose to come to Clemson, and it's a special place. And if it's right for them, then they're here.
And finally, Jeff Scott addressed a question, basically I think focusing on some of the issues with perhaps the Robert Kimdichie situation and maybe some of the parents' influence in the recruiting process, as we've seen a lot of players saying, hey, you know what, I like to go here maybe, but mom and dad say I should go there. And I'm not for being against what your parents say, but I am for doing what you think is best. Hopefully this is Jeff Scott talking about that exact topic.
I wouldn't say directly because of his parents, but it is definitely you're recruiting the whole family to join the program, and so everybody has to be on the same page. And so if there are sometimes maybe parents that don't want their son here, then we're not going to go against their wishes, but we definitely try to develop relationships with not just the prospect, with his entire family.
And I think that's a great point. It's something that Jeff Scott has been able to do a great job with. One, because I think he's pretty young, and two, he's really beginning to make a name for himself, not just amongst players. When you start to bring in guys like Sammy Watkins, I mean, that stands out for people. Maybe you look down the road to the Deshaun Watson, hoping that he still comes to Clemson. If you assume, some of the things line up, Chad Morris staying on board at Clemson being one of those. Which I know a lot of people are going to say, don't talk about that, you don't want to talk about that. But it's obviously something that's in the thoughts and minds of many people when you look down the road. I mean, he's clearly one of the more sought-after offensive coordinators in the country to become a head coach and fix people's terrible offenses that do exist out there. I don't think there's any question about that. Now, we do have a couple of more things in the chat room here. But all in all, great day for the Clemson Tigers, a great haul. Landing Mackenzie Alexander was a bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people. We did project him to Clemson, but it was not something that I felt confident about, but that's what I wrote. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I really thought that we were going to see Carl Lawson end up at Tennessee, which was going to open things up for Montravius Adams to come to Clemson. When that didn't happen, when Lawson reaffirmed with Auburn, my feelings about Adams waned quite a bit. But at the end of it all, at the end of the day, a really good recruiting class for the Clemson Tigers. And Bernard wants to know, he says, I believe we got 7 or 8 defensive backs in this class. Will primetime Adrian Baker see the field this season? I think he's one of the big question marks as to whether he will or won't, obviously, because there is a need there. When you look at this season, much like we were talking about moments ago, Bernard, with the running back position, and Dabo addressed it as well, we had a number of injuries in the secondary this past season. And so if those things present themselves, do I feel like Adrian Baker is talented enough to play? Yes, if it was one of those things where you must have him on the field. Weighing at about 170 pounds at 6'1", he's rail thin right now. He's going to have to put on some weight. But the good news is you get in the system, you get on campus, you get to eat good food, you get the nutritionalist and get the right diet, you put on 15 pounds, then he's 6'1", 185 after maybe being on campus 3-4 months. If he can still run, still play well with his hands, he's a guy who obviously can be impactful for somebody down the road. Now, will that be the case? Will Clemson choose to redshirt him? Those are questions that have yet to be answered. But I do think in a crunch, he's a guy you could put out there and feel fairly comfortable with. I mean, he was a very sought-after recruit. Obviously not as much as a Mackenzie Alexander, but somebody that I think you could feel confident in if you had to throw him to the Wolves. But I don't think we will throw him to the Wolves. I see Adam in the chat room talking about Alexander will play. No doubt about that. Here's the other thing. Alexander, and you talked about it, Adam, with Blanks. Travis Blanks came on like gangbusters. And here's the other thing about Travis Blanks. as good of a player as he is on the field, I don't want to encourage you. I don't want to encourage you to follow these kids on Twitter and hound them and tweet to them and everything. But Travis Blanks, always quality tweets. Quality tweets. He's not talking about going out and partying. I mean, this is a kid who honestly loves the Lord. And he is tweeting about that and his relationship with Jesus Christ and stuff. And I tell you what, you can have your feelings about religion, and I know there are many of you that think that that's something you shouldn't be tweeting about, and many of you say, no, that's perfect. He is a quality kid, and I love that we have players who have character. I love that we have players who aren't just invested in college football, but in life and what they're going to do academically, where they're going, the direction. And that's important. You know, Dabo talked about graduating players. We can say, oh, well, if the graduation rate is 100%, but we lose half of the games, we don't want it. I've always said the academic institution of Clemson University comes first and foremost. And I know without the athletics, we couldn't have the buildings that we have and the things that we have on campus that athletics provides for us financially. But doesn't it make you stick your chest out a little bit prouder as a Clemson fan that you've got these quality players, that these guys can get behind the microphone and speak, that these guys go on to do great things off the field? And if their playing days end, much like Chansi Stuckey said his are going to, he's got a career path. He's got a degree. That's so important. You can't put a value on that. And you can talk about sending your kid to play in the SEC. You can talk about your kid going to play at a team that may play for the national championship. But when it's all said and done, that degree your child can fall back on. And if you don't have it, if you don't have that, you don't have a whole lot. So that's the other thing that I really like. And, you know, you can't address everything about these players at this point, but I feel like through the evaluation process, what we've seen from Dabo Swinney fairly consistently in this staff is finding good kids who turn out to be good and great players. And that's as valuable as anything. I know we got a couple of questions left here in the screen. I'm going to leave those for the after party. If you know about that, stick around for it. We had a couple of issues with some of the things tonight. I apologize for that. Spreecast, its first hiccup we've ever had here with Spreecast. I don't know if it was the number of people. It didn't look like we had so many to crash it, but you never know with these things. Anyhow, we're going to get out of here, and then we're going to stick around for a few minutes and chat with you all about the Clemson Tigers and what your thoughts are, a little bit off color, I guess, if you will. Thanks to the guys over at TigerNet for putting us up on the front page. Thanks to everybody who stopped by the show. Chansi Stuckey, David Hood, great stuff. Oh, by the way, I love saving these for the end. CJ Spiller. It looks like CJ is going to be our guest on next week's TigerNet Talk Wednesday night. Following that up with Will Proctor the following week. You want to know who's going to bring you the Clemson players? You want to know who's going to bring you the guys who you love on the field? The guys you pulled for and cheered for? We are, right here on TigerNet Talk and also on the Clemson Hotline. So check that out. Keep up with us. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Clemson Sports. And until next time, as always, I'm your host, Lawton Swan, signing off. Y'all take care now. And as always, go Tigers!